is very similar, for those of you who are familiar with public health, to a universal response, tiered levels of support, or the PBIS triangle of Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, or all, some, few. But in restorative school, we're talking on a universal level or a primary prevention level about reaffirming relationships. We want to repair relationships when things go awry, and we want to rebuild relationships when things completely fall apart. And the listing on the side there shows some of the different things that could be part of primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention and intervention. So at a universal level, we want everyone to participate by engaging in circles in the classroom, learning social emotional learning, having all of the adults practice and teach empathy by using effective statements, having circles at a secondary level to repair harm or restorative conversations or chats, peer mediation when bullying is not the concern but people are having difficulty with their relationships, problem-solving circles in the classroom. And then at the very top, when you need to rebuild relationships using restorative conferencing, or having re-entry circles when a student perhaps has to be sent away for a period of time for the safety of the community to be able to come back to the school in a good way. These practices may be different in different schools. You might put different words with the reaffirm or the repair or the rebuild. But the main points are just that we want to reaffirm relationships, we want to repair relationships, we want to rebuild relationships because a restorative school is about relationships. Next slide. So if I were to think about that primary prevention level, about effective statements, about teaching the emotion of feeling, teaching the language of empathy, this is a practice, a basic practice, particularly for all of the adults, so that they can at every turn include social emotional learning around empathy. They not only would model things like, I am delighted that people are listening to me on this radio show because I spent time preparing it. I am giving people some understanding about how I feel and why I feel that way, and giving people the students words so that they have more than just happy, sad, glad, mad, but also to teach empathy, to look for an opportunity to ask an empathetic question per the subject matter that you're working with. Like, how did Martin Luther King feel when he was going to give that speech? A question you might ask in social studies or in history. What do you think George Washington felt in his body before he was going to cross the Delaware and attack the Hessians? In math, how do you think 5 feels when we take 3 away from it? At any point, we can ask a question that engages the students to think about feeling and empathy. And then, of course, we reinforce empathy in school when something goes wrong by engaging people in a restorative process. Next slide.
So what Circle does, which is one of the practices that we have in restorative justice, is that it slows us down. And probably this is like a bad word in school because we're just like go, 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 go. And to slow down is actually really hard for some of us in schools. And so slowing down really allows people to be in their bodies, and a lot of what Nancy talked about right then, to be in their bodies so that we can think. And if we are really doing the work of educating young people, slowing down should be something that we do on a regular basis, right? Because slowing down helps us see each other. And seeing each other is a trauma-informed practice. It's a trauma-informed response. You have to be seen to be able to do what you need to do in school. It allows us to build relationship and community. We're not just these single individuals that are doing whatever we want to do and not caring about what's happening to all the other people that are in the room who are being affected by whatever we're doing, the good and the parts that hurt. The slowing down helps us as adults be able to be in our body, so when we're not teaching from this place that's not present. It's really asking all of us to be present. It allows us to problem solve, where we are taking in more than the idea of the person who speaks the loudest or jumps the farthest when it comes to some problem-solving situation that we find ourselves in. It allows us to relate so we can plan. Because without getting to know each other, without building trust and understanding, and it doesn't allow us to actually discuss concerns and come up with a plan. Unless we know each other, we can go straight to the plan, and then because we don't trust each other, go around and around and around in the plan. The circles allow us then to sit and use our structure that we have to repair harm. So it slows down the process so we can think. Next slide.
So as we move into these primary prevention activities of teaching empathy and effective statements and using Circle to build relationships between students into Tier 2 of repairing relationships or Tier 3 rebuilding relationships, there are some core assumptions we need to keep in mind. And the first one is that the intervention is not the only part of a restorative school. Building a strong, caring community is the foundation of a healthy school upon which you can put the practices of repairing harm. And the other really core assumption is for people to remember, regardless of how we act, whether our colleague is grumpy on a Monday morning or a student has called us bad names and has broken our new test tubes in the chemistry class, everyone wants to be in good relationship with others and with themselves. Everyone wants to feel respected. Everyone wants to have a sense of dignity. Everyone wants to feel as if they matter to others. Everyone wants to feel that they are valued even if they didn't proof the slide and forgot to put the L at the end of that last feel. These core assumptions drive all of the practices in the school. Next slide. So a summary for us is restorative discipline. This is from Kay and Carolyn's book, Circle Forward. Restorative discipline is effective only if there is a whole school approach that results in the shared aspirations to build a caring school community. There is no sense in washing the child. This is one of my analogies. There's no sense in washing a child and getting the mud off of them if you're going to send them back outside into a mud puddle. But it does make a lot of sense to wash the child and get the mud off of them if you can send that child back to fresh grass and clean sand. Next slide.
So whenever we talk about restorative justice in schools, everybody wants to know what to do when harm happens. They rarely want to hear all about community building, but from the work that I've done, I know that culture change and climate change and positive climate happens with community building, and that is transformative. And we as adults hold that piece. We are the people who hold the culture in the schools, and so we have to pay attention to building community. But as this slide shows, when harm happens, what do? We have to work with everybody who was in that process, involved in that situation. The person harmed, first of all, having that person be able to say what happened, how they felt, how bad it was for them, what are they hoping for as healing. The person who did the harm, finding out what were they thinking? Like, what happened there? What did you need? And then all the other people who are involved in a situation, and no one else can define the harm but the people who've been involved in the situation. So if somebody has, did graffiti in a bathroom, which, people in schools, we all know this does happen, you bring the person, who was the person harmed at that point? It was the school. So how can the school be represented as the person who was harmed? the person who did the harm, the young person who did graffiti for whatever reason. They might have been trying to express themselves. You know, maybe there's no space for them to be able to do that. Bring them together, and also for them to acknowledge that they actually did something that is going to take some cleaning up. And the other affected parties, you know, definitely people who are administrators may be involved in this, but let's not forget the custodian who has to clean this up as one of the parties who was harmed, right? So we have to make sure that everybody who's involved in this, and we trust that everybody who is involved in this, that we can solve our problems, that we don't have to take it to a third party and have them solve the problems for us. So when harm happens, we have to involve the person who was harmed, the person who did the harm, and other affected parties. Next slide. So this is a kind of a repeat of the what I just said. And so when the harm is done, what you want to do is to be able to first prepare everybody to come to this meeting where you're going to have the conversation. Please don't bring people together without preparation. That's really a big part of what needs to be done. So the preparation, making sure that everybody knows what's going on, what questions are going to be asked, maybe even having them reflect and think about what's going to happen before they come through, talking it with each other, identifying some solutions, and restoring order, which is what we crave for in schools. Next slide. So when harm happens, we focus on repairing. We are not focusing on punishing and taking somebody away from what happened. We are looking at what is needed to repair the harm. Does the person who did the harm need help to repair the harm? What can we do as community to hold both parties or both or more parties so that we can help? We are the community. We hold both, the person who was harmed and the person who did the harm. And what does everybody need to feel safe again? It takes a lot of honest conversation to have a session like this come up with just what is needed. We can try to do this process really quickly and miss what happened here. And so slowing it down, asking these questions, preparing people, doing the circle and the conference in a way that allows for every single person to be able to participate is really, really important. The other important piece when harm happens is the follow-up. Never do a circle and then forget to do the follow-up, because that is what cements what all the good that happened in preparation and in circle, that cements that good, where the person who did the harm gets to move out of that place of shame into a place of dignity, where that person who was harmed for that incident also gets to move out of shame or sadness or embarrassment and move into dignity again. Next slide.
So restorative practices for some people is a paradigm shift, and it's a bit hard. And for other people, it's a relief. It allows people to operate the way that they want to operate with children. Belinda Hopkins outlines this shift in a restorative school, that we're going from telling to listening, from knowing the answers, I know what the answer to this problem is, to being curious, what happened? From institutional or third party trying to restore the balance, which takes a lot of effort, to having those who are affected trying to restore the balance. They're the ones who know best what needs to make balance for them. From focus on the person who's done something wrong to focus on those who have been harmed and those who have caused harm, widening the lenses, the lens of what we're using, as Howard Zare would say. From external coercion, which takes a lot of work and is pretty tiring, to having kids have internal motivation, which of course is what we want children to gain, self-control. Next slide. So here we're at a place where we'd like to take an opportunity for questions and answers for maybe about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm handing this off to Molly for direction.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Rita. So again, a reminder, if you have a question or a comment, simply press 1 on your telephone keypad or on the dial pad for which you're accessing our room here together tonight. While we're waiting for questions to roll in, lots of them are, I just want to make a quick reminder, please, that the slides from tonight, this wonderful presentation that Nancy and Rita prepared, will be available to you along with the audio, and that's posted again at our main participant learning community page, which is peacealliance.org teach/course/page. Excuse me, that's dash, not slash. All of you can access that from our emails that you're getting from us after each of our sessions. So there's a bunch of goodies there at that main site that you'll want to take advantage of, including, of course, the slides. And also a reminder, the slides are not able to be operated while we're in our live session tonight or any of our sessions by the participant circle, so just be patient with us. We will be providing a copy of the whole presentation to you for your use and review. So thank you for that. And then also a reminder, certificates for submitting your CE or CEU credits in your local area or district, those are available now. If you need one, simply email Katrina, that's Katrina, at peacealliance.org. So just a reminder for that as well. Finally, Circle in the Square is a wonderful book that Nancy wrote, and that link is also on our main site page. So let's go into questions now and see if we can dive in even deeper. Juanita, welcome, you're live.
Hello. Actually, you answered my problem. The slides have not been moving since the one about Circle. Did you realize that?
Okay. So as far as the slides go, they're being operated by one of our staff. So you should have no problem seeing them go from one to the next. You might refresh your screen, your viewer screen, if you're having problems with it. See if that helps, Juanita. Thank you. Let's see here. Dorothy, welcome. Do you have a question or comment? Dorothy. Okay, we'll come back to you, Dorothy. Maybe you're muted. Joseph, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Calling in, excuse me, calling in from Lewis, Delaware. This is wonderful. And my question is, in kind of gathering the parties to participate in a circle, when there is one party or even more parties that don't want to participate, any pointers about what to do at that point? Do you hold off? Do you have private conferences?
I'll start, Nancy, and then you can add. So if people are not coming voluntarily to the conference or to the circle meeting, the circle can take place, but only for the people who want to do it. So you've already mentioned having more meeting time with a person who doesn't want to participate, and just working with them about, what is it that they need so they could participate. But it's a very kind of a fine line not to force somebody, not to coerce somebody to actually come to circle. And especially the person who was harmed. You don't want to coerce the person who was harmed to come to circle. This whole process is not a process specifically to support people who've done wrong. It's for every single person. It's a balanced way of dealing with what happened. So the person who did the harm, the person who was harmed, and the community who witnessed what was going on. So I would spend more time with the person who doesn't want to come to circle, and if they don't want to come to circle, then that's their choice. The circle can continue